Today on Context, if everyone were to suddenly adopt the North American standard of living, we would need several planets. Is consumerism out of control? And can faith play a role? I'm Lorna Dueck. You're watching Context, the show that looks at life beyond the headlines. We're a society that often associates status with personal belongings. We find our identity in what we wear, the car we drive, and how big our house is. Shopping is the #1 leisure activity. The latest figures available show the wealthiest 20% of the world accounted for 76% of total private consumption. We consume a variety of resources and products, having moved beyond basic needs to include luxury items and technological innovations to try to improve efficiency. Let's put it in context. Well, before we introduce our first guest, take a look at this.
There's nothing physically wrong with you.
Then why do I feel so awful, so bloated and sluggish? Nothing gives me joy anymore. Not the house, the car, the clothes, the raise. Nothing. Doctor, I'm frightened. Well, do something. Can't you give me a pill?
There's no pill for what's wrong with you. I'm afraid you're suffering from affluenza.
Oh, my God.
That was a clip from the 1997 documentary called Affluenza, which was produced by our next guest. John DeGraff is an award-winning documentary filmmaker, author, and frequent speaker on issues of overwork and overconsumption. And after the success of the Affluenza documentary, he co-wrote a book by the same title. John joins me from Seattle. John, tell us what affluenza means.
Well, of course, it's kind of a joke word. It's a combination of affluence, lots of money, wealth, stuff, etc., with influenza disease. So the idea is that our quest for consuming things and for products has become something of a disease. Also, I would say an addiction.
I see a noun description here that it's painful, contagious, it's socially transmitted condition of overload, debt, anxiety, and waste resulting from dogged pursuit of more. How does that spell out, John, for an almost cult-like following around the affluenza concept?
Well, particularly in the United States, in the late 1990s, we were in the longest sustained economic boom we've seen in this country's history, and everybody was actually getting more, and people felt as if there was, no tomorrow in terms of the economy continuing to grow, spend money as if it didn't matter. Today we're in a very different situation. We know that now the economy is in tough shape. People are in tough shape. They're stretched. They're worried about the future. They are spending less because they don't know whether they're going to have money in the future. So when you look at all those things, this is a very different time.
And it is quite a difference, you feel, in how the States and how Canada have handled affluenza. What have you observed?
The Canadians, I think, have been much smarter about a lot of things. I mean, in our passion in the late 90s and early 2000s for greed and for accumulation, and for the sense that this was always going to keep getting bigger and growing faster and faster, we did various things like completely deregulate our banks so that they could speculate large amounts of money, and that would then make the real estate bubble grow and grow and grow. Canada was much more careful about that. You didn't deregulate your banks in the same way. You didn't let the greed of the few completely overwhelm the needs of the many. And as a result, Canada today has the world's most secure banks, where you're ranked #1 by the World Economic Forum in the security of your banks. The United States is ranked number 111th.
So there has been, I guess, what we've learned from the Occupy movement that cries against the 1%. Does affluenza stay there, or does it cut across socioeconomic brackets?
Over the past 30 years of this affluenza push for greed, the top 1% of income earners in the United States has seen their incomes triple from 8% of the national income to 24% of the national income. Now the top 1% of American income earners make more money each year than the bottom 50% all put together, and they have more accumulated wealth than the bottom 90% of Americans all put together. They are definitely or have affluenza big time. We all suffer from it, but some people are pushing it on the rest of us and gaining in ways that the majority of people are not gaining.
Okay, so society suffers from the effects of affluenza, but affluent people, aren't they more happy? Does stuff buy happiness?
Up to a point it does, you know, and when we see a lot of increase in happiness when people are going from being very poor to being middle class, for example. After a certain point, in the United States, it seems to be about $75,000 for a family. That levels off almost completely, and people don't really get any happier. But also, as you look at societies, as societies grow and their GDPs grow beyond a certain particular point, the societies as a whole don't get happier. So, for example, in 1957, our economy was a third the size that it is today. We now make 3 times as much overall, but we are not more happy. In fact, happiness flatlined since 1957 and has actually gone down a bit.
Fascinating. So you found there's about $75,000 was the baseline where happiness was attained, and over above that doesn't matter much. I want to ask about another baseline, and that is as church attendance started to drop across North America, did we see a stronger relationship between that decline in spiritual values and affluenza?
Well, I think that there is a correlation. I mean, we certainly more people these days attend shopping malls, for example, on Sunday than attend churches. I don't know exactly. I think there are other factors for that as well, so I can't say that that's all the result of affluenza. But we do know that the affluenza message, the message that the good life comes from having and having more and more, runs counter to the basic Christian message, which is that it's better to give than to receive, that the good life comes from the gifts you give to others, the sharing of your talents, the contribution to the world. Happiness science, which I'm involved with now, completely confirms that. It confirms that people are happier when they give rather than receive, when they are generous, when they share, and that societies are happier when they are more equal, when the gap between rich and poor is smaller.
Tell us the symptoms of affluenza and the cure.
Okay, well, we look at some of the symptoms in the film, symptoms like swollen expectations. We kind of compare them, you know, it's humorous. We compare them to aspects of the flu or disease. So swollen expectations is one. I mean, right now I don't have that thing in front of me, and it's been a bit, but we look at things like a rash of bankruptcies because we have seen bankruptcies simply explode, personal bankruptcy in the United States since that period of time. We look at resource exhaustion. We look at what we call industrial diarrhea, the pollution that our highly consumptive way of life wreaks on the environment, for example. We have a whole lot of those kind of symptoms. The cures really have to do with, I think, thinking about what matters in life and understanding that while there's not a problem necessarily with stuff, if you're sacrificing your health, your family, your community, your connection, your environment, your time by working yourself to death for this dream of simply getting more and more stuff, that doesn't work. And you don't make yourself happier, and you don't make society stronger. So I think the cure is to rethink this and get life back into balance, in which we understand that while material things are important, they are not the be-all and end-all of life, and that while measuring our GDP, you know, gross domestic product, matters, just having the grossest domestic product is not the route to happiness. We need to be able to measure the other kinds of things that make us happy as well.
All right, John DeGraff, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Earlier, our team's Jackie Habib took to the streets of Toronto and asked people for their thoughts on affluenza.
Have you ever had affluenza?
No. What's that?
Affluenza.
Do you know what it is? No?
I'm not sure. Probably some people inside this building, but...
Have you ever heard of it?
No.
So affluenza is an illness when when we buy too much of something. Do you suffer from that?
He does.
He suffers from it?
Maybe too many shoes.
Yeah?
Shoes and purses.
Yeah, shoes and dresses.
Not being overly greedy. I mean, you don't need 10 watches. don't have enough money to catch it.
Any tips for others who do suffer from this?
Yeah,
Get a life.
or get a monastery. A monastery is a good place to spend a little money.
Coming up, Professor Anne McLennan will give us a lesson on the history of consumerism, and it cuts closer to religion than we'd like to think.